connect it to 401 Gives. So, can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up? Yes. Awesome. So, when we talk about annual giving and the donor cycle, so annual giving is essentially the backbone of a fund development program. These are basically reoccurring contributions made on an annual basis. I'm just going to check the chat here to make sure there's nothing. Oh, okay. Was that just Tina sending another flyer? Oh, for Rose. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, that was me.
Oh, thanks, Eli. So, um, depending on the size of the nonprofit and the capacity of the nonprofit, you can do one annual giving campaign or you could do 10. I don't recommend 10. I recommend at least 2 to 3, though, even for smaller nonprofit organizations. And so for your annual giving, you can do this through lots of different ways. Nonprofits still do direct mail and email appeals. Believe it or not, direct mail is still effective, especially for those people who are your existing donors. Where direct mail is not effective and where I get pissed off that about direct mail is when nonprofits sell their mailing list to other nonprofits, and then you start getting mail from all these random nonprofits that are asking for donations. That's not effective. That pisses your donors off. So don't sell your donor lists. I know it can be a source of revenue, but I'm a big fan of not selling our donors information. Just my 2 cents. You can also do annual giving through, online giving. You could do it through monthly, reoccurring donations, giving days like 401 Gives, or peer-to-peer fundraising. In my experience, where I worked previously before starting my business, we had a spring campaign, and we had the spring campaign before 401 Gives was created, because I think 2020 might have been the first year that we did 401 Gives. And after the first 2 years of 401 Gives, we said, oh, you know what? Our spring campaign started like the following week. And we said, why don't we use 401 Gives as the kickoff to our spring fundraising campaign and use that as day number one? Everyone get excited, donate on 401 Gives. And then we would continue our fundraising campaign throughout this spring. And we would end it with our annual breakfast. We'd anchor it with a special event, fundraising event. I just want to check the chat because I have 2 messages popping in. Um, Eli, am I assuming that you're gonna check the chat, or do you want me to keep checking the chat? I don't want to make any
I can,
assumptions.
yeah, I can check the chat. It's no problem.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
So, as I was saying, with the annual fundraising campaign that I did with the previous organization I worked at, we kicked it off with 401 Gives. We ended it with a fundraising event that was a way to showcase our work, showcase the folks that we served, and also do that last big push for donations. And it was always really nice because we would set a big goal for ourselves. So, say it was like a $150,000 goal, we'd set 20,000 or 15,000 for our 401 Gives goal. Then when we headed into our breakfast, we knew how much we had left to raise to reach that goal. And that was a big driver for folks in the room, because we said we're only $10,000 shy of our goal. Everyone in this room, if you give $25 right now or $100, we can reach that goal. So using events in that way can be really successful. But with that said, depending on the size and capacity of the organization, that might not be an option. The other times of year that we see fundraising campaigns is usually around Giving Tuesday through the end of the year, because lots of donors like to give their donations at the end of the year so they can put them on their taxes when they file their taxes after the new year. So those are two kind of potential annual giving campaigns that can be rotated around our two big days of giving in the state of Rhode Island. Other folks have various fundraising campaigns throughout the year for different programs or projects. One of my clients, they do a big Thanksgiving food distribution. And so they're going to have a specific fundraising campaign over the summer, help us raise money for Thanksgiving in July. So instead of Christmas in July, we're doing raise money for Thanksgiving in July. So you can maneuver your annual giving campaigns around the stuff that you're doing that will already bring people in and will bring attention in. So don't be afraid to blend things and connect them to other things that you're doing. Annual giving can really be a nice foundation for an organization as well. When we talk about fundraising, there's something called the giving pyramid, the fundraising pyramid, where it's three parts. At the tippity top are your major donors, right? And that is the smallest piece of the pyramid. Those are the folks that are giving $1,000, $2,500, $5,000 annually. You have longstanding relationships with them, you steward them, you have good relationships. The middle of the pack is a little bit bigger. Those are your 250, your 500s. Those are folks who might sponsor an event, might give you a larger check at the end of the year, or might make a bigger donation around one of your specific giving dates. The bottom of the pyramid is really the foundation of the pyramid, and it's the biggest part. And those are your lower level donors. And one of my biggest frustrations with nonprofits is everyone wants to focus here at the top and how important the top of the pyramid is. Yes, major donors are absolutely important, but the people at the bottom are the ones that really stabilize you, and they are the ones that come through for you when you have that big push at the end, right? It's the $25 folks, the folks that can sign up to be a monthly donor at $25 or $50. And so don't forget about that bottom level of the pyramid when you're doing your stewardship with folks, when you're doing your outreach with folks, both prior to and post a fundraising campaign. Here's a traditional donor cycle. Now, I know 401 Gives is next week, but traditionally speaking, when you identify a donor, you're going to be looking through who do you already know? Looking through your existing donor databases. Are there folks who maybe gave one time and never gave again? That's an audience that you might want to target and do some outreach to. Or is there community members or other folks that you know that aren't necessarily donors, but you know would really care about your work? This requires some individual outreach. And again, I know that our staffs are really strained and there's a lot going on. What I would do when I was the development director is I literally reserved 1 hour a week. That's it. Reserved it on my calendar for me to just do donor outreach outside of our campaigns, just to check in. And if I only got a chance to email 5 donors during that hour, that's okay. It's better than none. So on my calendar every week, I took an hour and would just reach out to some of our donors, either just updating them, thanking them, checking in with them if I knew something was going on, inviting them to something that we have coming up, just to maintain that communication. Then after you identify folks, the cultivation process is usually for folks that have never given or have only given once. And so cultivating is going to be asking them out for coffee, seeing if they want to have a quick phone call or a Zoom phone call, sending them some updated information about the organization. The cultivation is like the hook, right? You want to get them connected and caring about your organization and the mission first. Then the next step is solicit. So cultivation and soliciting for a donation should not be one step. You don't want to say, this person would potentially like us. Let's go ask them for money. It's this person might potentially like us. Let's go and establish relationship. So when we have 401 Gives or when we do our summer fundraising campaign, then we can solicit them and ask them. So cultivation is building that relationship in advance. Soliciting is to get that gift. Once you get that gift, you need to thank them and steward them. And so stewarding does not have to be oh, I need to invite them to a big fancy dinner, or I need to, name a room after them. Stewarding could just be, thanks so much for your $250 donation last month. It really helped us print out these outreach materials for our Day of Awareness that's coming up next week. We'd love for you to attend if you're interested. Here's the information. Great. That is letting them know that you put their money to action and that they can be a part of the solution because you're inviting them somewhere. Or maybe it's an event that they can attend and it's, I went to a school and provided a great program to students. Here's some of the pictures from that event. Or here's a link to the press conference. Or here's a link to a video that we took. That stewardship is really just helping them stay connected to the organization, because that lack of connection is what makes donors fall off and not give again. And the next step is renewing. You want them to re-engage every year, and that's why that stewardship piece is important. I know some organizations that anytime someone donates, they ask for their birthday, so they get a birthday card in the mail every year for their birthday. That's a stewardship point. That's a nice little low maintenance kind of thing that you can do, to let your donor know we appreciate you. Who doesn't love getting a card in the mail these days? So if you have not at this point taken a look at your list of existing donors in advance of 401 gives, I would definitely encourage you to do that and look at the folks that you may want to outreach to personally to set them up for 401 gives. And not blast email, it's going to be individual emails, especially with 401 gives. Every nonprofit's participating, right? There's 7,000 nonprofits in the state. I don't think there's 7,000 nonprofits participating in 401 gives, but there's a lot. And they're all sending out e-newsletters to everybody. So everyone's inboxes are full of e-newsletters saying it's almost 401 gives. Those are getting deleted, right? But what's not getting deleted is a personal note from Tina that says, how's the dog doing? And they open that email up and they say, oh, Tina, so good to hear from you. The dog is great. Oh, yes, 401 gives. I'm happy to give a donation. They're going to open your personal email, read it, especially if you open it with a personal note, include a note about why this organization is important to you, why you work for it, why you volunteer for it, why you're raising money for it, and asking them specifically, will you join me in giving a gift? Because you're saying, I'm giving a gift. Will you join me? So it's calling them in to do that. So between now and Tuesday, maybe start looking through your donor list if you haven't already, and maybe do some of that personal outreach for folks to get them excited and get them lined up to give a gift. The other thing too is to think about monthly giving. And the reason why monthly giving is really kind of critical to an organization is that is a sure thing every month, right? That is money coming in every single month that's going to be automatic. And we know that when folks sign up to be monthly donors, they have like an 80 to 90% retention rate. So they are going to continue to give monthly. And then those that continue to give monthly actually end up elevating their gift over time and becoming major donors. So it's a nice pipeline to get folks in. And maybe you do a specific fundraising campaign at some point throughout the year to specifically recruit monthly givers and monthly donors. Monthly giving becomes a little bit more digestible for people, especially those that want to maybe commit a higher amount but can't do it up front. $25 times 12 at one time might feel like a lot to someone, but if you say to them, well, your $500 gift, if you spread it out over the year, you actually end up getting more impact from that person. So you can use 401 gives to kind of set that foundation up, or like I said, you can do another kind of fundraising campaign that does monthly giving recruitment. But the most important thing is no one's going to become a monthly giver if you don't ask them. And some people, sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the background, um, which made me, of course, lose my train of thought. Excuse me, stop it, go lay down. When you are specific in saying, would you consider becoming a monthly donor to the organization? And you can spell it out for them. $25 a month means that we can provide a bag of food to one family every single month because of your gift. $100 a month means that we can host a free training for the community members every month because of your support. So the more you can kind of be specific with that, the better. I've seen some nonprofits be really successful with naming their monthly giving circle. So you can come up with like a cool name for it. People love to be associated with, oh, I'm a part of this club. Um, Oh, that's what I was going to say about the monthly giving. Some nonprofits will only put the option to become a monthly giver when someone gives a donation online. They're less likely to click that. They're more likely to become a monthly giver if you specifically ask them personally and not just have it as something on your donation form. Any questions about annual giving? Because, we only have an hour today, and I want to make sure I get through events and engaging volunteer and board members as well. All right. So I'm going to move on to types of fundraising events. A lot of folks think that fundraising events are just those big galas, big breakfasts, things like that. It can be. But not all organizations have the capacity to do that, or the timing, or the money, right? It costs money to host a big gala. You need to pay for your room rental at the hotel. You need to pay for the AV and sound and the food and all the things and the decor and the entertainment. Galas can be really expensive. You can do them cheap, but if you're a really teeny tiny organization, a gala might not be your thing. And so when smaller nonprofits that are like all volunteer run are like, we can host a whole big gala, I'm like, woo, slow it down, because that's going to take up all your time and you're not going to be able to do any work. But fundraising events don't have to be huge, right? You could have a major donor who gives to you, who might want to host a cocktail party at their house or an open house at their house. You might have a local coffee shop or restaurant or local business owner that might want to host a mini kind of event for their networks to come and learn more about your organization, and folks will give donations. Maybe your board members can host different events. There's also ways that you can really make fundraising events more about community and cultivation and engaging people in your work. The more people feel engaged and connected to your work, the more willing they are to give a financial contribution. So even open houses, tours, mission moments. I have one client that's a nature-based organization and they do wilderness walks and invite folks, right? So use what you do well as an opportunity to raise funds. Peer-to-peer fundraising is very, very effective when it is other supporters fundraising for you. If it's the executive director who's the only one doing peer-to-peer fundraising, it's not going to be as effective, right? The executive director's job is to fundraise anyway. And so when you do peer-to-peer fundraising, you need to have folks identified who are going to have their online peer-to-peer fundraising page. So you're going to identify board members, volunteers, or other folks who'd be willing to do that for you. And that gets folks really excited, especially like 401 Gives time, right? All the nonprofits are posting on social media. The way the algorithm works, nonprofit posts and events are not prioritized unless they purchase ads, right? If they purchase a Facebook ad, then it's going to be boosted. If they don't pay for a Facebook ad, it's just going to sit on their page and not get a lot of engagement. But what is going to get a lot of engagement is if the board president on their own personal Facebook page says, join me today giving to 401 Gives, or join me in giving to X organization's fundraising campaign this summer. That's going to be more effective because your board chairperson has a huge network on Facebook and all of their friends are seeing it because they're an individual person, not an organization. And so it's actually going to be more effective to have your people that are already supporting your organization post on their own pages and asking people to give and to donate. That's the most effective kind of way for peer-to-peer fundraising. And then finally, you could do virtual or hybrid events as well. I know that we became big not fans of them, but big doers of the virtual events during COVID. I am so impressed with the virtual gala that I hosted in 2020. That was certainly an experience, but it was also a lot of fun too. But you could do other things, right? Like I'm not saying everyone needs to do a virtual gala, but maybe you do like a virtual kick off something, or maybe you have a guest speaker come or a performer or something that gets people excited, and then you connect it to some sort of fundraising initiative. So here's to kind of plan a successful fundraising event. If you're thinking of doing one of those big galas or breakfasts, you got to start planning like 12 months in advance. But if it's a smaller one, you might just need a couple of months to do it. But for larger scale events, here's a timeline, right? 6 to 12 months out, you're setting a goal, you're setting a budget, meaning how much money can you spend to host this event and how much money do you want to raise? Choosing a format. You want to recruit committee members for larger events. The nonprofit cannot do it on its own. You're going to need committee members to help with decor, volunteering the night of, getting folks to purchase tickets and attend as well. And then during that 6 to 12 month period, you're also looking and recruiting sponsors and developing a sponsorship package. 3 to 6 months out, you want to really build the guest list, confirm the program, design your materials. 6 weeks out, you're going to start promoting it, hardcore, selling tickets, maybe recruiting peer fundraisers, making sure you have volunteers set for the event for the day of, because there's a lot of moving parts. And then after the event, you want to immediately thank your donors. Events are great places to establish new donors, especially with your sponsors, right? When you have, oh, Bank of America sponsored and they get a table of 10, they put that email out, right? Bank of America will email their whole Northeast office or Boston office or Providence office and say, hey, we have a table at Sarah DiCataldo's nonprofit event. Does anyone want to go? Here's what the nonprofit does. And so then the employees will say, oh, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. Or they'll go to employees and be like, hey, we have this table. Can you come to this event? Those are folks who are going to give at your event because you're going to do a call to give and they're going to be like, oh, everyone's giving. Sure, I'll give $25. But those are people you want to connect with within 48 hours of them attending your event and thanking them so you can hook them and get them staying on. And maybe coming to another event or maybe participating in another fundraising campaign. So if you just let those people walk out of your event and you're not doing any follow-up with them, those are lost opportunities. Any questions about events? Because I'm kind of moving through fast, but I just want to be mindful, A, of time, and I also want to offer a Q&A for folks as well. So fundraising should not only be done by the executive director or the development team at a nonprofit. Everyone needs to engage. Your board of directors, that is a part of their role and responsibility. They have a fiduciary responsibility to your organization. They have to assist with fundraising. It's also really, really nice when the board of directors has a 100% contribution rate. That doesn't mean that every one of your board members has to give $1,000. It's giving a gift that feels okay for them. One of my clients, they have a very grassroots board that's very much made up of the community that they serve. And so there is not wealth there. We have board members who give $10 a year, and that is a beautiful, beautiful thing because They're volunteering their time and they're contributing what they can. And it just demonstrates that they care about the mission, want to see the organization succeed. So, your board of directors, to get them at 100% giving, don't think it has to be a huge gift. $10 is meaningful, especially if that's a big amount for that person. Um, you want to make sure, and I've been doing this a lot over the past couple of weeks for various organizations, in advance of those giving days, in advance of a campaign kickoff, in advance of a special event, you want to make sure that you provide information to your board of directors. Here's how much we want to raise with this day, with this campaign. Here's some script examples. I literally, for 401 Gives, created 4-page documents for some of my clients that literally outlined elevator speech you could say to someone if you see them in person or talking on the phone. Here's text message examples that you can copy and paste. Here's email examples that you can copy and paste. The easier you make it for folks, the better. And so on that document, I just outlined, here's our goal. Here's what the donations are going to go to. Here's some quotes from some of the people that we have served that really shows our impact. And here's some scripts and templates that you can literally copy and paste. So I make it as easy as possible for the board members. So I don't get in return, well, I don't know how to do it, or I didn't know how to write it. Great, it's all there for you. It is well worth the time investment to put something like that together for your board of directors because they're going to be more willing to do their own personal outreach. Board members can also be really effective in helping to thank donors. I'm a big fan of the personal written thank you note when folks have time and capacity. You get 100 donors on 401 Gives, the executive director's hand's going to fall off, right? But if you have 10 board members, each board member takes 10 thank you notes, writes them from home, pops them in the mail. That is a great way to share the responsibility. Have your board members share your fundraising stuff on their personal pages. Have your board members invite folks to your events and invite them as guests so they can learn more. One of the biggest myths that people believe is, oh, my board isn't really wealthy. My board doesn't really know a lot of people. I hate to ask them to ask for money. The worst that they can say is, I'm not comfortable doing that. And you go, okay, and you move on to the next board member. But it's also about how you're engaging them in that and how you are saying, this is really important to the organization and you're an important part to the organization. You're an ambassador. And people are going to listen to board members because these are folks who are volunteering their time for this organization because they care so deeply about the mission. So who better to encourage others to give than the people who are already giving of their time and their own pocketbooks? You want to make sure that you're creating this kind of culture of giving and sharing with your board members. You know, I would have board members send me a list of like the names that they outreach to so I could let them know if they gave a gift and then they would immediately reach out to them. So I'd say, oh, hey, board chair, your best friend Sally just gave a $250 donation, wanted to let you know. Great, oh my God. And then she texted Sally and said, thank you so much, Sally. That means so much to me. Makes a huge difference. You can also, in addition to your board members, other volunteers as fundraising ambassadors, right? What other volunteers are already doing work for your organization, already connected? Or do you have a fundraising committee that you could engage? Or maybe you create a fundraising committee, and those are folks who are specifically dedicated to helping you with fundraising. Places where you could potentially find volunteers who may want to help with fundraising and be an ambassador: previous event attendees, previous donors, previous interns and volunteers, board members who have resigned or retired from the board, friends of board members that they might want to connect to the organization but might not be ready to be a board member. people who have attended community events or signed information lists for you. Use the resources that you already have. Any questions about kind of engaging your board or volunteers in fundraising work? So, because 401 Gives is next week, you know I couldn't get away with ending a fundraising session without talking about it. Obviously, we're only a few days out. At this point, if you are doing 401 Gives and your 401 Gives page isn't updated, I would encourage you to do that as soon as possible. Set a specific fundraising goal, and maybe send a note out to your donors and supporters saying, hey, be on the lookout, 401 Gives is coming up. And also, as I said previously, looking at your list of donors and identifying folks that you want to do some personal outreach for and letting them know, hey, giving you the heads up, 401 Gives is next week. You've been such an important part of that in the past. Hope you consider giving again. Personal individual notes, not a big blast email. The day of, you want to make sure you have some e-news going out. You want to make sure you have social media posts going out. You want to make sure that your board members are following up with their contacts and anyone that you've done personal outreach to. You are reaching out to them again saying, today's the day. You're going to join me? I just gave my gift. Here's a screenshot of my gift. Share a screenshot of your gift. And you could make it a cool thing too, right? Maybe you say, I'm going to take, anytime one of my friends makes a donation, I'm going to post it on social media. Or I want to do a collage of all my friends' donations and post it on social media. Think creatively, and you know your friends best. Watch the leaderboard, celebrate milestones, get folks excited about almost reaching a goal or using that if you're like $1,000 off or $500 off. Use that as a motivator. We're only $500 away from meeting our goal. Can you give right now? Will you be the one to get us over the finish line? Folks get really, really excited when you are close to reaching your goal. It actually gets them to give more, and you end up overreaching your goal, which is certainly not a problem. Immediately after they make a donation, you should have that automated thank you email set up through 401 Gives that will go out, but you also want to send personal thank yous as well. You want to make sure that you are providing that tax documentation, but if you could do that handwritten thank you note to really connect with folks and let them know, thank you so much. This donation was a huge help. And then maintaining communication with them, right? You don't want them to just give on 401 Gives and then they don't hear from you again until next 401 Gives. Maybe you want to schedule a newsletter to go out in the summer that says follow up from 401 Gives that goes out to all your donors. Maybe you want to look at all of your 401 Gives donors with your board of directors to see, does anyone know these people, especially those that gave bigger gifts? Are those relationships we want to cultivate better or steward better and move forward? Do we want to host some sort of open house or something to get those folks here to see our work in person, to elevate them up to a higher gift? So use 401 Gives as a propel for you, as a way to move forward and to take your fundraising campaign to the next level. So you want to thank them. Maybe there's some sort of event. Make sure you give this. I actually just talked about this, so I'm not going to repeat the whole entire pipeline because I just went through it. But the next time you ask them for money, you should have thanked them in between that. But the next time you ask them for money, reference that gift. In April, you donated $100 to our 401 Gives campaign. We are so grateful. This summer, we're raising funds for our annual Thanksgiving drive. Will you join us in giving a gift for this, right? If you reference their previous efforts, it actually helps them, A, to remember that they did it, and B, it almost feels like, oh yeah, I did give. You know what? I should give again because now I'm like a part of this. I have a role here. So if you can reference that gift to remind them and to give them that extra nudge, that's excellent. So before Tuesday, these are some of the things that you want to do. I've already talked about it, but make sure your pages are updated. If you can include some photos or a video clip, photos are worth 1,000 words. Reaching out to those donors, reaching out to the 401 donors from last year as well, and saying, hey, it's that time of year again. Thanks so much for your gift last year. Can we count on you again this year? Share some content with your board of directors and volunteers so they can feel empowered to do fundraising on their own. Make sure you have your thank you note drafted, and think about what type of touch point, what type of stewardship can I do after 401 gives before our next fundraising initiative to keep those folks connected and sustained, whether it's personal outreach, newsletter, inviting them to an event of some sort.